Hi, I'm Kendra Corman. If you're a coach, consultant, or marketer, you know marketing is far from a perfect science. And that's why this show is called Imperfect Marketing. Join me and my guests as we explore how to grow your business with marketing tips and, of course, lessons learned along the way. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Imperfect Marketing. I'm your host, Kendra Corman, and I'm really excited today to be joined by Rob Genovesi. And we're going to be talking about branding, rebranding, brand strategy. So tell me, how did you get into branding?
Yeah, it goes against, I think, what a lot of people do. I didn't choose brand strategy because I thought it'd be a great occupation and, hey, I could do that. And, that would be a great career choice. It wasn't at all. I came across it out of necessity. I was in corporate America for 25 plus years, managing creative teams. I only have a 2-year degree in graphic design and advertising. That's when you could get by on a 2-year degree way back when. Always wanted to own my own business and, had to develop a lot of skills along the way throughout my corporate years, learning on the side, hoping for that day. And in 2015, after my second corporate layoff, I decided I need to start a company. I can't. I was becoming a very high performer later on in my corporate life, and it didn't matter. You get laid off because of economics, you get laid off because of politics, legalities, economics, any combination of the three. So I decided, let me leverage my skills. So I opened up a website and design company. Did it while I had a corporate job. I thought I knew what I was doing. We talk about marketing. Thought I knew what I was doing. I had a great polished website and, everything was really polished and very corporate-y looking. And so was I at the time. And I was doing a lot of social media based stuff. I was recording podcasts 5 days a week. I was on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, finding my place essentially, but doing regular content and getting ignored. Immensely ignored. If there's a way to be ignored at any level, ignored is ignored, right? Invisible. I wasn't striving to get clients. I was striving for profitability. That was the problem. So I couldn't find the clients who I could become profitable with. And there came a turning point where I, as this very generic version of myself, thanks to corporate, that's a whole nother story, decided, I've got to do something different here. And I had a guy call me up one day, and he's this Italian contractor, as if there's any other kind. So I'm a kid from New York, so everybody's Italian near me, or so I think. But he called me up and he's like, you need a website. And he goes, I don't know if you can help me. I hired this guy to do a website for me, and we just kind of butted heads and we couldn't seem to connect. Can you help me? And I was like, sure, absolutely. So we talked a bit, and this was a time when I needed the job. And so I figured, how am I going to nail this? Because, website guys, they're a dime a dozen. Everybody and their nephew builds websites. You can have them built for you automatically, with AI these days. And so in the conversation, he's like, I'm starting this new business and, there's a lot of big guys I'm up against and I want to become, and he threw the word brand in there. And when he did that, my brain kind of latched onto it. And I thought, well, I can't just come up with a cool design for a website. It's not going to cut it. I need to nail this. So I interviewed him for like an hour. And we talked about a lot of basic stuff. It was kind of the remedial basics of branding because I didn't really know much about branding. It's not what I did. And so I asked him questions like, what's your mission? Who's your competition? What makes you different? Why should people choose you? All these basic questions that, were business questions to me.
Well, and people skip them. I think that's important. Like a lot of people skip those questions.
Well, because they're not businessy, right? What's your mission? Oh, don't bother me with mission. Show me how to get clients. Like, okay, it's funny because that's the stuff we're up against with helping people really succeed. But I used it to interview him, so of course he's going to answer the questions. The funny thing is, I took that information and I went back to my office. And I designed a website. I wrote the marketing copy for it, the hooks, the headlines, all that stuff. I designed him one logo that I knew was the logo. I'm like, this is going to nail it. And I presented it to him. And I don't know if you know any Italian people, but if you're not watching this, he had his hands on his chin and he's rocking back and forth in his chair. And I'm waiting and I'm practically sweating because I'm like, what is this guy going to do? And if you know any Italian people, that means he's either going to kiss you or he's going to smack you. And you know what it is. So in what seemed like 15 minutes was probably only 15 seconds. And he stops rocking and he points his finger at me and he goes, "You absolutely nailed it. It's like you were in my head. How'd you do that?" And he bought everything. Now, that's all great, but I learned I learned the hard way that what people like and what is effective are two different things. I didn't want to assume that, what I did was going to help him succeed, but he called me a year later and he goes, "Hey, how's it going?" I said, "Everything's great. How's it going with you, Lou?" He goes, "Oh man, things are great. I'm busy 7 days a week. I got clients more than I can handle." And I learned to remain teachable and humble. And I said, I didn't want to assume it was because of what I did. I said, "What do you owe your success to?" And he goes, "That brand stuff you did for me, absolutely amazing." And in that moment in my mind, I became a brand strategist because I thought, this is the impact point that I want to do for people. And here was the turning point for me. To get to your real question, how did I come about doing this? I did it for several more clients and it worked so well. I decided I want to do this. So I evolved my company. I shut everything down. I put myself through my own brand strategy process that I gleaned from all the greats. And out the other side, in one side goes this corporate guy. Cause I was, button down shirt, leather belt, slacks, shoes that are leather to match the belt, and clean shaven and slick back and all this stuff. And when I went in the process, that's how I went in. Out the other side came, if you see me now, you just go online, you'll find me everywhere. The way I look now is completely different. The way I speak is completely different because I was wearing a mask. I was being who I thought you wanted me to be. And at the basics, branding is differentiation and authenticity. A very overused word. But that real part of me came out and the attention I got exploded after I relaunched my actual brand of who I am. So I became a brand strategist, honestly, Kendra, because to me, it is one of the single most impactful things that a company can do. And so it's my mission to help people improve their personal lives through business and branding.
I teach at Rochester Christian University, which is a local university here. And yeah, I'm working on the market research class that we're in right now. And yeah, I've told them flat out, the number one thing that you need to do is understand your customer, right? Who's your customer? Who do you want to be? How do you want to differentiate with them? What keeps them up at night? I'm like, this is more fundamental than any other class you've taken. And so it's going to be an interesting journey with them. So excited for that because people don't go to those basics that you were talking about, right? They skip over them so often. I remember I asked a potential client one day, I was like, "So tell me, what makes you different? Why are people calling you now? Like, why are people buying from you?" "Well, because they know it's time." And I'm like, "No. Nobody is spending, 5 figures plus because they think it's time. There's a problem that you are solving for them. What is it?" And that was really interesting, right? He didn't know what differentiated him. He knew what he did. He knew he did it well, but he couldn't give them that differentiator. And
Well,
that's so important.
differentiation, it's a funny thing. Uh, People think differentiation, they think, well, I'm different. Well, why is that? Well, I'm the financial guy that wears this green tie. No other I wear a green tie all the time. In fact, I don't go anywhere without my green tie. And I'm like, okay, that is different, I suppose. But if it doesn't actually make sense, then what's it? Then it's just a gimmick, and people don't follow gimmicks. I'm not saying that wearing a green tie isn't a good trigger for your brand because as a designer, the visual parts are very important. But I'll be the first to tell you that it's the words you use inside forming what that brand actually is, getting it down on paper so you understand it, where you can flesh out, like we said, mission, vision, values, ideal client, the messaging, all that stuff. And you flesh it out so you can look at it three-dimensionally and flesh out on paper, what does this look like which informs the design so that if wearing a green tie is the proper trigger for your brand, well, so be it. But you can't just put on a top hat and be like, I'm the so-and-so, I'm the guy who wears a top hat and does your insurance. Like, okay, that doesn't help me at all. That's not differentiation. That's a gimmick.
So, all right. So that's a great transition into what is brand strategy, right? So a lot of people think branding would be wearing that green tie, but it's a gimmick, right? So what is brand strategy?
On one hand, I think I latched on to an industry that is approaching a tidal wave in its immensity as people come to understand what brands actually are, that they have the power to create one. Because, decades ago, only big companies with multi-million-dollar budgets could actually create a brand. Right now the power, because of technology and social media, is in the individual's hands, which is great. Except if you go on LinkedIn or anywhere, they'll always be talking about build your personal brand, build your personal brand. And while I am in full support of that, I would say yes, but building a personal brand doesn't mean posting every day on LinkedIn, wearing the said green tie and providing value. While that helps your marketing, right, that is not building a brand. And so while that may work, the problem with that is going to be twofold. Number one, gimmicks are flimsy and people are fickle. And once they get tired of your antics, what are they following? Are they following the fact that you wear a green tie and you provide great value? But this guy could he's got good value too. I'm going to go over there. The other thing is AI, where everybody who doesn't understand AI is using it to create their brand or build their brand. There's nothing in the foundation. So what is brand strategy? It's a foundation for what people are thinking they're building right now, but are not actually building. What they're doing is they're marketing themselves in a very consistent way and having some success. But it's hard to sustain because it's not built on anything. So brand strategy is those things we talked about. It's what is your mission? What are you on this earth to do? What is your vision? Where do you see your company in the future? What do you want it to be? What are your values? They establish the culture. And what is the ideal client? You talked earlier about, who you're talking to. Knowing who you're talking to so you know how to talk to them, that's the messaging. And there's so much more. But when you put it all together, that's what creates the foundation of the brand. And it's the bedrock of something that you build upon. And so here's the distinction that I like to tell people. You have to go through the brand strategy in order to develop the brand. Then you go on LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or wherever, and you amplify the brand through your marketing strategy. It's two parts. There's a lot of confusion around branding and marketing. People think they're one and the same, and they're not.
Let's go back to one thing that you said first, and that is talking about mission and values. I get a lot of pushback from people on mission, vision, values, that there isn't any value in it. So talk to me about what that looks like. Does the mission and vision and values, do they matter? How do they make them matter?
I'm actually so glad you asked it. And it's timely because I live on LinkedIn. That's why I keep mentioning. I live on LinkedIn. That's where I market. That's where I meet people. About last week or so, a very well-respected brand strategist made a post blasting the use of mission and vision and I think maybe values too, as brand strategy, saying it is not, don't listen to the people who are talking about this. And while I understand, there are hooks that are designed to reel you in, that sometimes there's a nuance there, I don't think he was saying they're useless. What I think he was saying was, these are not brand strategy. I would disagree. Here's the thing. You create a brand so you can build a profitable, long-term business that people will continue to buy from year after year, no matter what you sell, right? It's like Apple. No matter what they put out, people buy. It's a brand, but it's a business. So the reason that mission and vision is important is this. If you don't establish a mission, you don't even know why you're waking up every day to do what you're doing. You need fuel in your tank because building a business can be rough, is lonely if you're a small business, if you're a solopreneur, very lonely. It can be very frustrating. You need fuel, man. And that vision, I wake up every day, I'm like, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna, pursue my mission, which, like I said earlier, the vision, this is crucial. People do not think about this. When I started my business back in 2015, I still had a corporate job. After I went home and I spread the word, I got a couple of clients very fast. Getting clients was not a problem. Being profitable was, but that's another story. The next thing I did was I said, because I wanted to own a business I wanted out of corporate. What does this business look like in my life in the future? That's the vision. So what did I do 10 years ago? Now it's going on 11 years. I don't want employees. I don't want an agency office. I don't want to be an agency. Very big distinction in the creative world. I want to be able to take my laptop, travel to Nashville with my wife, go to a honky tonk. Oh, by the way, let me do a little bit of work. Let me pop on a podcast. No matter where I go, I want to go to Miami. I want to go to the Keys. I want to go wherever. I want to be able to take a portable business with me. And that was very important because it guided my business decisions every single day. So I was not confused. It provided clarity. Now, in relation to a brand, here's the thing. You build a business, you build a brand. You build the brand so that over time, the brand will build the business. You leverage the brand to build the business. So that you need to know, number one, you need fuel in the tank, mission. You need a compass, that's vision. And the values provide a culture that inform people, whether you're employees, you're freelancers, this is how we conduct ourselves so that they go, yeah, these are good people. That's why they're so important.
I do think that they're important. I do think that they have purpose. I do find that a lot of my clients struggle with keeping it a part of every day, right? And keeping it top of mind. It seems to be oftentimes an exercise that they do, put it on the piece of paper and walk away from. And I think that's where I struggle. And maybe that's where that other brand strategist was struggling, right? It can't be an exercise, right? That you just do, check the box and move on. It has to be real and be part of your everyday.
But this is where, so I wrote a book that came out, I say last year, but it was just a couple of months ago. And I wrote about my journey. And one of the things that I write about is the fact that writing this stuff down or doing this, I did it out of necessity to clarify where I was going. I didn't do it as an exercise, but true. What you said is true. I work with clients and they're like, they almost seem to gloss over doing the mission and the vision. They're like, ooh, let's get to my logo, which actually design is the last part. So they're very disappointed. But what I found out was in working with clients, this is where the nuance and the art of building a strong brand comes in. When you're working with people and you have to help them imagine, put them in a place of emotion, of saying, look, the reason your mission is so important is, do you remember the last time you woke up excited to get what you're doing? It's been a long time. Well, listen, we got to get to the bottom of that. That's going to provide the fuel. Imagine running your business and waking up before your alarm clock rings and going, man, I can't wait to get at it today. That's part of what mission does for you. So when I paint the picture and I walk my clients through it, they're excited now. Now I can get them to want to do their mission statement, their vision, and get excited about being real with what it is instead of writing down what they think I want to hear. That's the trick.
So if there was one thing that people do wrong when they're building their brand, what would you say that is?
The one thing they do wrong is, and this is my personal experience, and I haven't heard a lot of strategists talk about what I'm going to tell you, but I see it over and over again. And I left corporate in 2019 in July, and I went right into networking. So I've spoken, and I did a lot of networking. Like, when I say network, I mean, like Zoom in person, local business networking. And so I spoke with literally hundreds of people one-on-one, plus rooms full of people. But one-on-one is where I meet people and I get to know them. They don't go all in. They have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Part of the reason is they don't have brand strategy. So they're giving this kind of, I don't want to say half-hearted, but not a full effort because out of ignorance, they don't really know what to do. But even if they do have a real strategy, they don't go all in. And what I mean by that is I meet them and I see that somebody on LinkedIn and I see their profile and I look at their picture and then I get out of Zoom with them and it's like I'm looking at a different person. It's like I'm hearing a different person. And I'm going, your visuals aren't aligned. The words you're using, your phrases, everything you're talking about, your messaging is not aligned. And so there's this disconnect. So there's this consistency that's required in brand strategy that is left out of the equation a lot of times, which is why, I started working very kind of in an intimate fashion with clients to help them achieve profitability. And that's, look, you don't build a brand and go, hey, I've got a logo. What do you think of my brand? Like we see this online all the time. I got a new logo. What do you think of my brand? And I'm going, what are you talking about? It's not what and it's almost this kind of overused phrase now, a logo is not a brand. And we get that, but people still do it. And so they don't go all in by aligning the visuals, the colors, the words, the way they show up, their vocabulary itself. Hey man, if we're talking about visuals, what's something simple? If I go on your LinkedIn profile and I see your photo and then we get in a room together and you don't look like that, like you look different, I'm like, what happened? Who are you? So there's a disconnect. And while people will dismiss it as, oh, well, I'm not going to get headshots every year. My first question is why not? But really what I'm thinking is, what is it that you don't understand about the consistency of expectation and the subconscious going, maybe I don't say to you, hey, you're not the same person. I'm not going to do business with you. That's not what people say. Their subconscious goes, something's not right here. Something's not real. Something's off. And that's why people get ghosted. Why? Because it's like, if there's something off, people are not going to go with you, right? They need to feel 100% like, hey, I can trust this person with my business, with my hard-earned money. So that's the one thing that I would say. It's like, come on, be consistent.
I like that because, they do have a tendency to not go all in for sure. I've seen that a lot. I've done it myself, right? So I think, especially starting out talking about needing the business and stuff gives people hesitancy to own their brand because it is different, right? And it needs to be different. Otherwise, you're not going to be building a business and you're not going to be building a profitable business. So very important stuff. Well, this has been an awesome conversation and we didn't even get to half the questions that I also had on my list, which is always good because that means that we had a fantastic conversation. But before I let you go, I do have to ask you the question that I ask all of my guests, and that is that this show is called Imperfect Marketing because marketing is anything but a perfect science. What has been your biggest marketing lesson learned?
I've been talking about this one a lot. And, I came from a place where I was very clueless, like into my 20s and 30s, paralyzed with fear. I really couldn't talk to people. And I'm not overstating it. I literally couldn't. And there's stories. And, I'll give people a link. They can get my book for free. Your listeners can. Because there's a lot of lessons in here that talk about the thing that I just talked about. It's the fear of people, not doing what they should do. So the biggest marketing struggle that I've had is after going through decades of, I've read over, in a 15-year period, I read over 500 books. I mean, attended countless seminars, webinars, took courses. I mean, you name it, pursuing success and winning and excellence and always leveling up. And I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning. The one thing that it took me a long time to learn was this. Because what people do is, what do they do, Kendra? They're like, give me the exact framework I need to make my email marketing, just launch me into 7 figures. Well, that's all good. And then you get another guy going, if you don't have this offer nailed down, forget everything else. Well, that's good too. And then you get another guy going, listen, if your funnel isn't optimized, you may as well just close up shop. And he's right. They're all right. But here's the thing. Any strategy can work, but you've got to know what you're doing, know what you're looking to achieve, figure it out, figure out your own journey, figure out your own path. Stop copying somebody else's path and be like, it doesn't work. All those things work. So imperfect marketing, not following the one path that you should follow and making your mistakes, correcting them by learning what you need to correct, what's working, what's not working, and stay on the stinking path until you succeed. So then your story can be the one where you be like, here's what I did. And it may not be for everybody, but it's going to be for somebody.
Well, and I think that that's so important because, yes, all of those things work. All of those things worked for those people. But I talk to people on a regular basis. I've had a guest on my podcast who isn't on any social media, right? I've got people that choose, sometimes are on social media, but mostly email. I've got people that are consistent with their email. I've got people that only send email when they're selling things, but they've built a relationship in the past. And so people still buy. And it's very interesting because you're right. It all comes down to your brand and your brand strategy that's going to fuel that information, that perspective, and what you say and how you do it. I mean, if one of your values is consistency and you're not being consistent, then you're not really living through all that stuff, right? But if it's not consistency and, then okay, maybe that works for you. Again, everything is different. I think there's very few things that work for all businesses. Very few.
Yeah. And that's the danger that people are up against when they don't. Again, it's a lot of fear, fear that I might fail at that or not taking the time. Kendra, how many times, look, you're really good at what you do. I'm really good at what I do. And Joey over there is good at what he does. But you've got to learn the things that you need to learn to make it work for you. And I don't think people are giving themselves enough credit to be able to figure it out. Either that or they're looking for somebody to figure it out for them because they don't have confidence that they can. So, we hire experts to do this kind of thing. And I strongly believe in getting coached. I really do. But at a certain point, it's your path. They're your shoes. You got to walk in them and you got to figure it out.
I love it. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing all of this great information with me and my viewers and listeners. So thank you guys all for tuning in. I hope you learned something today. If you did, it would be awesome if you would rate and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Until next time, have a great rest of your day.